Let's watch this video. Russia's fighting a war NATO no longer understands. Like and subscribe.
Hello and welcome to the latest episode of Counter Currents. I'm Larry Johnson. Today I'm going to be talking with my good friend Andrei Martyanov. We're going to talk about the state of the war with Ukraine, what Russia's doing right, what we can expect in the next few months. Because 2026 is turning out, I think, to be a watershed moment in this war. Please hit that like and subscribe button. We appreciate your support.
Already did.
Thanks for watching. Okay, so, I'm sure if you're watching this channel, you got to know Andrei. And if you haven't, look, he's written several books, but the one that just, they're all relevant. But your first one from, it's now, God, 9 years ago, Losing Military Supremacy. Talk about prophetic and laying out exactly sort of what we're seeing unfold now. It's just...
Larry is very different here than he is in the Mario interviews, right? No cigar, no laid backness.
So, all right, where does the war with Ukraine stand now? We're 4.5 years into it. This appears, at least to me, that 2026 is going to be sort of a decisive year compared to the others.
I mean, the thing which people have to understand, and this is absolutely critical, Russia is not fighting Ukraine. That's the whole thing. People still consider that, oh yeah, Ukraine does this and Ukraine does that. Russia fights NATO, headed by the United States. At this stage,
True.
Each Russian society absolutely has no illusions about the fact, which is, of course, is supported by the huge mountain of the empirical evidence, that it is between the United States and vassals, U.S. vassals in Europe, and Russia. And that has been confirmed now on so many levels that it's even ridiculous to talk about it, albeit my fifth book, which it's now in catalog, in Clarity Press, and I'm writing about it together with my friend Vladimir Trukhan, who will be making, Colonel Vladimir Trukhan, who will be making...
Heavy Russian accent here.
All kinds of the commentaries there. And the issue is that it's over for Ukraine. And for people who do not understand how over it is, I'll give you something which seems not to be from the line of combat contact, where daily it's just pulverization of whatever is remaining there. Now those 2 million refugees in Europe from Ukraine, and some of them are meeting a rather very unpleasant, reception by such people like Poles, for example. Oh, hello, Poles had so many years to recognize the Dokusan Nazis. You cannot get any kind of social services or protection in European Union if you are Ukrainian and in your passport you don't have the stamp or something which is called Reserve Plus. That means what? They are corralling all those remnants of the cannon fodder.
They're trying to send back all the Ukrainian men that fled to avoid being cannon fodder, as he said, and being drafted to the front lines. It's got so bad that Europe is rounding them up and sending them back. This is the same Europe that pretends it cares about, refugee status and asylum, that you can't send someone back to their own country if they are going to be at immediate risk of death. But except if they're Ukrainian. Then you can send them back to die.
Europeans, and they will try to, obviously, under this pretext, throw them out back to Ukraine. But the point is that is also they will be committing their essentially homicide, because those people will be killed. And many people still do not understand what is happening on the ground there. Just today, again, number of the towns and villages have been taken. The situation in Sumy is catastrophic. In Kharkov now it is catastrophic for Ukraine. And the storm of Orekhov has started, and Orekhov is essentially the right flank of the penetration towards Zaporozhye. As they call Zaporizhia, Zaporozhye, yeah. And Kherson is being pummeled. It's just all over the place. So it's several operational axes, and everywhere Russia advances, Russian troops advance, and with the catastrophic losses for whatever is remaining of Ukrainian troops.
But they are,
and there is even...
They are still advancing slowly for the moment, but they are advancing faster than last year, but still slowly.
Video, you can easily find it, of those, essentially pinned down brigades when they, from Drushkovka, for example, and they say video to their commander, now Drapati, which is, I'm not going to translate his name into English, it's a funny name. Drapati means literally just, running away, just route, that's what it means. They say they drink urine So they don't have anything to eat, they don't have water, and yeah, well, the humanitarian part is over for Russians. They don't care. They will be killed.
Earlier this year, there was videos that emerged of Ukrainian troops that literally looked like skeletons, that they'd been starving. It was a big issue. Yeah, the supply and logistics on the Ukrainian side is not great.
Or if they want to surrender, they will surrender, and they will be going to, being imprisoned, and you work like Germans did, restoring whatever they wrecked in Donbas republics and, other two oblasts, which are, of course, Kherson and Zaporozhye.
Do we have any clue as to the identity of the person in the Russian army who said, you know what, we ought to use these drones as an offensive weapon? Because, as you look back over the evolution of this war, and I was talking with George George asked me on to talk about, because he said, what do you think are, in the recent war are the two most important game changers in terms of technologies that force the other militaries to completely have to change tactics and approach? And I said, drones and hypersonic missiles, those two. The last time, apart from the development of the atomic bomb in 1945, and I'd be interested if you agree or disagree with me, the last time we faced any kind of technological change that altered how people had to conduct ground
I'd say the submarine, too, was a very big change in the way wars were fought over the sea.
Operations, formations, etc., was the introduction of the machine gun and then the tank in the World War I battlefield. And the odd thing about that is the machine gun had been around for 50, 60 years with the Gatling gun.
Well, American Civil War, yeah.
But it didn't really become a game changer on the battlefield until, 1916. And so we sort of seen a similar thing with drones because, I remember back in 2001 talking to one of my CIA buddies at the time. This is how they were using drones back then. They were following two guys in a pickup truck.
I should also mention that drones have gotten better, battery tech has gotten better, and so it would have been hard to do what they're doing today, back in 2001.
In Afghanistan. And at one point, the pickup truck pulls to the side of the road. The two guys get out of the truck, and one begins having sex with the other.
Yeah.
But that's what they were using the drones for back then. So
at least he wasn't using the goat, which I saw that too. That's not pleasant sight.
Oh my God. Yeah. Animal abuse.
Yeah.
But anyway, we've gone from that to where drones. Remember the first iteration where they were dropping hand.
And they were far more expensive back then too.
Grenades from drones. To now where they're full blown with shaped charges that can penetrate armor and etc.
All right, folks, hold on just a second. We've got something important to share with you. First off, a big thank you for all your incredible support. Our team's been putting in the hours, really working hard to bring you insightful guests, new and improved formats, solid, high-quality analysis every week. Our next goal, hitting that 100,000 subscriber mark and getting that silver button. Let's make it happen together. Every like, comment, share, and subscription truly helps us grow and keep improving.
All right, good luck to you, Larry Johnson.
So I'd like you first to comment on this evolution of the drone within the whole both Russian and Ukrainian theater.
I mean, it's certainly drones are extremely important factor of this, albeit there are other things which, for example, average Joes don't see, which are no less, if not more important. For example, a further evolution of the combat control and battlefield management systems, which of course partially is provided by drones, a very substantial part of it. And for example, Russians introduced the new net-centric tactical level system, which is called SWAT, apart from the other ones, which are operational and strategic level, like Andromeda, and So this is a really revolutionary, explosive development. And in terms of drones, they are, for all their high profile, and they are very important, make no mistake, by no means. But look at what happened, for example, with the latest development by Russians in terms of drones, so-called drones. Apart from the obvious, most important part of it is the situational awareness all into the tactical depths, somewhere between, to 50 kilometers depth. And the question here is that, apart from the strike means, for example, do not forget that it's always the struggle or fight between sword and a shield. And you saw yourself already the emergence of the anti-drone technologies, which are dramatic, really.
Right.
So it's not anymore like this thing. Yeah, if you take a look, for example, the yolka, which is this little pine tree in Russian. This thing is, when it was mentioned like the beginning of 2025, now it's widely deployed, extremely effective in shooting down the drones. So, and of course, there are all types of different drones, including the drones which have a long range. But
Yeah, there are all types of drones for all type of purposes. There's some that drop supplies. There's some that, of course, suicide ones that drive in and try to blow up. Then there's reconnaissance drones. And those are, I'm also thinking of shorter range 4-propeller drones. Then there's the longer drones that have airplane shape. And smaller ones that have one artillery cell wrapped to the bottom of them to use as long-range artillery. Then you have ones that are as big as a small cell, what's it called, Sepna airplane, 4 meters long and being sent out deep into Russia. There are all kinds of drones.
Look where it all went. If you look attentively at the spectrum of the drones, then you suddenly begin to see, Geranium-3. What was Geranium-3 before? It's a drone. It's UAV with a range of 500 plus kilometers. It went from the propeller engine. Guess what? Today they are supplying now jet-powered Geranium-3, not to speak of from the onset Geranium-4, which is jet-powered. What it becomes then? Well, it becomes cruise missile, essentially. Even if you look at a banderole, it's a drone. Well,
it becomes a cheaper cruise missile.
Whatever it is, it ended up being cruise missile because you inevitably will have to project further. And what do? They kind of slowly and smoothly transform into the, a cruise missile territory. Of course, there are types which are very important. These are not just drones. These are loitering munitions, Landsets, all their iterations from the initial Landset drones or loitering munition to latest iteration.
Loitering munitions hover around the battlefield, just looking for a target, maybe for hours sometimes. Then they finally find something and they strike it.
They are extremely deadly, and a single Landset can take out the most protected, defended, tank in whatever you have. So they are obviously a huge factor, make no mistake. But let's not forget that still, per latest data, which was published starting this year in Military Thought magazine, which is one of the critical, the most important military publication in Russia and in the world, I would dare to say, still 55% of the damage, if you wish, of the kill of the personnel and all kinds of equipment, so the strong points and everything is done by artillery, field artillery, and 32% by the Air Force. The rest of the drones are still there. But I would say that apart from the inevitable tactical level of operation, the drones, the most important part in the drones was this 24/7, every minute, real-time situational tactical awareness of the battlefield, immediate battlefield, let's say tactical.
Unless there's fog or rain.
Up to the 50 kilometers, and now it's operational. You can see now that there's some drone flying from somewhere, in Odessa, and it shoots, and it really provides the video feed, how the vessels on the roadstead and in the port are being basically destroyed. So that's what it gives you. It gives you what militaries never had before. You have the full coverage. And with the introduction...
Satellites are good, but the best quality images from them are still blurry, and you need drone footage can provide 4K resolution right at surface level. Satellites can't compare.
This SWAT, which is battle management system, it's basically the squad commander. Forget about platoon. Squad commander has all of them obviously have their earpieces. He has their pad, some electronic pad, where he can do the decisions graphically in the computer, and obviously it immediately is connected to the platoon commander, it's connected to the company commander, and further up to the battalion and even regiment thing. But if you look how Konstantinovka was taken and liberated, what many people still do not understand, that it was liberated by a very small, really, contingent of the Russian stormtroopers, something on the order of a couple battalions, actually. So can you imagine this large, towns, cities, actually? And what they were doing, they have been tactically aware every single moment of because they were literally guided by their commanders. And Russian commanders have this propensity, they want to run ahead of their troops, which is, but they were sitting there, and you could see how they were guided, how they were allowed to hide from their countermeasures, how the green lasers were painting the places where they're in, basically firing positions of the Ukrainians were. This is revolution. You now fight, literally like in the, I don't know, computer game. I hate to use this, and that's what drones gave. They changed the dynamics of the tactical battle completely. It's absolutely, it's 21st century.
Well, let's talk.
Yeah, we went from trench warfare during World War One to giving that up in World War II to vehicles like tanks being important. Now we're back into trench warfare again.
So yeah, so let's say 20th century approach was the conventional wisdom is you needed a attacking force needed a 3 to 4 to 1 advantage in manpower.
Yeah.
Because they're facing an entrenched opposition that could level fire on them. Now that the attacking force, they hit them with artillery, they hit them with drones, they hit them with fabs, these glide bombs, and then all of a sudden, these fixed defensive positions are basically shattered well before the actual force, troops come approach them. And I would argue, and interested in your insight on this, that this had been one of the contributing factors to the minimal casualties that the Russians suffered casualties. But this is why, as an attacking force, they've not suffered the kinds of casualties that would have been suffered, even 20 years ago.
Russians are using a hell of a lot of artillery cells to move forwards and to, just like Larry said, destroy defensive positions.
Yeah, it's you're absolutely correct, actually. And we have to keep in mind now that even on the tactical level, if you use, for example, what your field artillery, your self-propelled gun, if it is M*S, even on the regular round, we're not talking about MRAP, it's 22, 25 kilometers, and they can get the basically the targeting in real time. Once you get your these fixed positions, and especially after all those fairy tales they talk about air forces, Russian air forces, if you have a Su-34 somewhere 400 kilometers away, you better run, because the next thing which is going to happen, it's going to be a FAB 1500 or even 3000 flying in, and it doesn't matter how deep you are. And then, of course, you have all kinds of nicer things like thermobaric weapons from the Tornado, and or Smerch, and it doesn't matter. Even they put out there those, heavy, doors on their concrete, reinforced positions. But you're still gonna get killed, no matter what you do. Precisely because you now have a very accurate targeting. You have the, the recon, which allows you essentially generate this target list. And especially when you have the firepower like Russians, that's what they do. They pulverize you, and then, as in the Starship Troopers, mobile infantry moves in and mops up. That's what it is, mopping up operations primarily. But if you take cities or towns, that's a little bit different game, because you operate in the different types of groups.
I will just say that one thing Russia is doing now, rather than conventional artillery, which is... you get the proximate position, and then you shoot conventional artillery. Yeah, just sometimes it's just shorter range. It's mortars. Yeah, mortars. Mortars. Artillery. Rather than, this is what they used to use. Yeah, right here. A lot of the front line. Shoot out one of these, and that's what they used to use in warfare. Now in war, drone, mortar drone. Russians are using airplane. Plane type. They're using these little planes, Russian. Here. Oh no, this is Russian side, but they have mass produced. They basically have a simple drone Russian drone with an artillery cell, a mortar shell attached to it. I've seen videos of it. Google Images is not cooperating. Instead of firing mortar shell that is less precise, they guide the drone right into the bunker with a mortar shell. And that's more devastating.
They obviously play with their, how they design, so to speak, the storm groups and things of this nature. But reality is, you can probably see it. You probably saw it a couple of weeks ago when Vladimir Putin was awarding people, with all kinds of the awards, orders and things like that in Kremlin. And there was one of the generals who said, Vladimir Vladimirovich, he was, I don't remember, was it Shamanov or whoever? Doesn't matter. And he says, can we go like more even intensely and courageously? And Putin told him, yes, we can, but then we will lose
Here,
more.
I found it. Okay, the video's unavailable. Let's go back to here. Damn. Right here. This is what it looks like. They have plane drones and then they attach an artillery cell at the bottom of this plane. And that's what they send into enemy bunkers. And it's a lot stronger than just, the propeller type drones.
Or people. Why do we need to do that? So you still have those options of the big, aero offensives, but why? When you basically, the way things build themselves up in terms of their tactical level, the line of the combat contact, and again, the tactical depth to about 50 kilometers, when you pulverize the essentially personnel and formations of your enemy with a minimal cost for yourself. That's the whole point. In the end, even if we go through the traditional military wisdoms for 3,000-4,000 years, what was the point? The point was to destroy, physically annihilate your enemy.
Right.
And Russians doing exactly that. I mean, it sounds horrible, but in the end, the order of the day to kill. And I know this is war. This is not Hollywood. This is not video game. You go in and you kill. That's what it is. And so this is...
And war is horrible.
Accomplished every day, including through the drones, including through the extremely high-level tactical and operational battle management system, and obviously their personalities of those officers, generals, and So I know some of them; they are exemplary people, and extremely well-educated and courageous, and some of them went through hell, and so. But these are the type of the people and the system which is in place there, which actually allows modern army to fight literally a system of the system, So the level of the command control and operational strategic planning is such that we never saw anything like this. And that is why many people, in Pentagon, for example, they watch too much, movie Patton and obviously watch this, Desert Storm, whatever. They thought, oh yeah, you have to rush and take ground. No, you don't. You will liberate it, but if you can liberate it by means of the political means, by applying, the certain level of pain, why not? You save your forces. You save the lives of your people, of your personnel. And that has been stated many times. And so what we have the army of the 21st century, especially 2026, fighting the essentially force, which is still stuck in 1990s, despite the United States providing all kinds of the ISR and communications and things like that. But you cannot change the DNA. It's like, if I was born in 1990, you cannot...
And apparently there's a huge number of foreign mercenaries fighting in Ukraine. And foreign mercenaries, in order to train them for the new warfare, you need months, if not years. So they're being given rudimentary training, but there's a difference of experience now between Russians and the Ukrainians. Well, not all. There are some veteran Ukrainians, but whether it's the people being drafted or pulled off the streets or foreign mercenaries, that segment of the Ukrainian army is not as well trained as the Russians.
change the date of birth. You can improve yourself, like there are 80-year-old women who go into the nursing homes, assisted living, they meet their 85-year-old man. They put on makeup and all that things, so that doesn't make them any younger. No.
Yeah.
So you cannot fight it. You have to change completely your age, which is impossible, and especially in the short run.
Well, in fact, I'd like you to comment, because this goes back to your, losing military supremacy. So the United States has drones and Russia has drones. But the divergence in those two programs is staggering.
Yeah, in this Iranian war, why isn't the United States using drones as much as Iran? The distance is the same for the United States, yet we're using all this precision ammunition that's so much more expensive. When we're hitting targets that are just equally as far, why don't we? And Iran has very few air defense, so why aren't we using drones like crazy, like Russia's doing against Ukraine? Answer is we don't have a manufacturing sector.
And what I mean by that is, so the U.S. became very reliant upon the MQ-9 Reaper.
Mm-hmm.
That drone, the airframe alone goes between $35 million just for the airframe.
I mean, the whole benefit of drones is that they're cheap. That's the type of drones that Russia and Iran are using, and that's their advantage. Reaper drones, they're not cheap. It throws away the fundamental advantage of drones. The only advantage Reapers have is there's no pilot. So it's not as politically costly to lose them.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you attach the pods, the optics, the weapons pods, it adds another $30 million. So you're talking about one drone that costs $65 million.
And also, the Reaper drone is not a one-time use drone. It's a type of drone where it takes off, it does its thing, it has those pods attached, the weapons it uses, its missiles it fires, then it's supposed to come back to base and land again, get refueled and refitted. That's why it's so expensive compared to drones that Russia and Iran are using, and even Ukraine now, is that those are single-use drones, and they never come back to the base. They're meant to just crash into whatever they're supposed to target. But Reaper drones, that's basically a plane without a pilot.
And we saw in the attempt between Operation Prosperity Guardian, that was Biden's attempt to get freedom of navigation in the Red Sea. That went on from December of 23 to February of 2025. So that's 16 months or 15 months. And then Donald Trump came in, by God, we're going to show them how to do it. And he launched Operation Rough Rider. Well, Biden lost something like 16 MQ-9 Reapers over that 15-month period. Well, almost one per month. Trump comes in, and because they're trying to locate the missile launchers in Houthi land, the Houthis are smart enough to put out decoys, set up ambushes, and they were downing one drone per week. Well, so the total cost of that was like $1.6 billion. And then just when you think the United States has gone as absurd as possible, they come out with this, I think it's called the MQ-4C Triton. And that's only for, as I told George Galloway, I said, George, I can get you a deal on it. It's only $250 million a piece. $250,000 for a drone?
$1 billion.
These aren't drones like we've been thinking that, like Iran again and Ukraine and Russia use. This is basically a plane without a pilot. It's meant to be reused, and it's obscenely expensive.
$250 million. And then you contrast that with Russia with now this new Geranium-4 with the jet engine. That costs $250,000.
Mm-hmm.
And it went up from $50,000 for the Geranium, or $30,000 for the Geranium-3.
Yeah, but the Russian drone that Larry just mentioned, that drone is just meant to carry an explosive pay charge and crash into something. It's a one-time use. So you don't have to put landing gears on it, for example, because it's never going to land.
Okay. What's going on? Why is it that the Russians get it right and the United States can't find its ass with both hands?
Russians have the expensive ones, which are, of course, Orion, which could be somewhat similar to those Reapers. It carries all kinds of things, including this Banderol cruise missile. Essentially, again, what is Banderol? Nobody knows. It's something that it's jet engine hybrid between drone and cruise missiles. So first, the scale. Russians produce up to 15,000 drones of all kinds a day. It's 5.5 million per year. And Mr. Manturov, who is the first vice premier, responsible for the Russian military industry, he already stated, if need be, we can kind of wrap up, So, and these are all kinds of them. These are literally just any kind of the category of the drone or UAV you can come up with, it will be there, Russia produces it. And it's the scale, obviously, is the scale of the production, which makes them less expensive. Because when you mass produce those things, and there is another thing, Russia has all necessary resources.
Yes.
She might go and patch it up if need be with some Chinese. Chinese sell it both to Ukraine and to Russia, so they are really smart people in China, and wink, wink, if you know what I mean.
That might not be going on for long. China is finally putting some restrictions on its drone exports.
So, but point is that it's the scale. It's massive. And secondly, as I already stated, you do not need separate things like expensive, no, you still need them, but it's how you unify them into the combat management system, which actually fights real war, not hunts the guys who screw each other on the side of the road, and you observe this ungainly picture, and suffer for probably people who saw it in their drone control. They had PTSD, I don't know, unless of course they are themselves like that. And so the point is that there are so many ways to essentially describe why it is so. And then don't forget one thing, Russian labor force, essentially working class, many of them, and especially when you consider the fact that Russians now, if you will be in Moscow and you will see yourself, ask the Russian people, not Sergei Karaganov, ask others, they will tell you that essentially, if you look at actually the cultural landscape of Russia now, suddenly there is so much pride in the factory floor. The youth, forget about it. 15 years ago, everybody wanted to be what? They wanted to be, I don't know, poet, rock star, or economist
influenced by Western media,
trading the stocks. Okay, today, oh my God, if you look attentively, one guy wants to be, operator of the CNC operator. People who are, deeply involved into the production floor, and it pays well also. And so suddenly you have the labor force which actually wants to work, and you have to you can actually pick them up.
TLDR, Russia has a manufacturing sector, unlike the US.
And suddenly you have the wonderful labor force, which you can pay decent enough, living wage, and they are ready to work. And there is quality, obviously, and so when you look at actually this, Russians is the only country in the world, well, United States kinda there too, which could live as autarky, which Russians actually doing themselves now, right? Essentially, Russia is autarkic country now in many respects. And so when you have your independent financial...
He's basically saying Russia can survive on its own. And it's true. It's just a huge country. It's got all the resources it needs, food from the food basket near Europe, and oil from all over the place, minerals scattered. Yes, it's got everything it could possibly need. And of course, that advantage is right next to China. It doesn't have to go all the way across the Pacific. It can just bring goods in on the railroads.
System, which is now pretty much insulated from all those variations of the craziness of the Wall Street and markets and treasuries and all that. So what do you have? You have the system which is in there, which pays extremely well, and you can maintain it. You can sustain it because of other types of the physical economic activities which allow you to do this. That's the thing that's called real independence. This is what many people do not understand. And it plays a decisive...
And that's why globalists and deep state in Washington hate Russia. It's independent. It's not... There's nothing they can do to cripple Russia with sanctions, and they're trying to use Ukraine against Russia. That isn't working. It's a threat. Iran, China, Russia setting up their own currency payment system outside of the whole dollar-denominated global financial network. It's a threat to the dollar.
For all, and how it is all basically being constructed. Russia is in the process of the reformation itself yet again, and it's massive. So the issue here is that Russia doesn't have private major military companies. It has some, make no mistake, but it is all government controlled or owned directly. So you cannot go to the board of directors of, let's say, Ural Vagon Zavod, which produces the massive, factory which produces Russian tanks. You cannot go to the board of directors and the first thing in the morning they ask, "Oh, how's stock doing?" Nobody cares about stock in Russia and Wall Street. They care about their plan, obviously the profit which they make through the government contract, because they're essentially government controlled. And so it changes completely the whole psychology of how the relations between labor and production are designed. And that is why many people don't understand. Is Russia capitalist? Capitalist, yes, but it's also a mixed economy. And most importantly, Russian government, Russian state owns military-industrial complex, 99% of it. This is impossible in the United States. As a result, there is a difference in people who work. Raytheon, the only thing they care at.
Yeah, you're right, Proton Cell. We used to have this. Like during World War II, it wasn't private companies that were doing all the making of weapons. That's something that happened later.
Is that what? Capitalization. Period. That's the only thing. And how they will get their sinecures, especially these people from Pentagon, and what they will be doing there. For what Raytheon does in Russia today, you will be persecuted, criminally persecuted for what you're doing, So that's the gigantic difference. It's fundamental, it's metaphysical. And again, the reason being, Russians,
if the United States still worked like Russia works today in terms of having the military-industrial complex owned by the government, they would have never allowed the outsourcing of rare earth refining to China. Such a critical part of the military-industrial complex would never, but we did, and now we depend on China for rare earths, and they're not giving us any.
Russians know, society knows what war is. The United States does.
I have a suggestion for your next book. Maybe you're already working on it. Mm-hmm. But how to...
It's already in catalog.
Well, how to restructure the U.S. defense industry so that it operates more like that in Russia and China. And why I say that is that the combined military budgets of Russia and China are like 1/4 of what the United States is spending. I mean, it's
the military-industrial complex is another arm of the deep state in America. It's just like the Zionists, the globalists. You'd have to dismantle the entire current political system in Washington to change, to reintegrate the military-industrial complex into the government. It won't happen until, after there's a currency collapse or something major like that rearranges the political order in Washington.
And not only is it much less expensive, but it is much more advanced, whereas Russia and China have hypersonic missiles.
China doesn't, actually, between me and you. I mean, they have what is called aeroballistic missiles, but they are still ballistic based. They don't have anything like Zircon, nor do they have avant-garde type, hypersonic. But some of it, they play with this. United States doesn't. That's the whole.
Yeah, but
they could easily make hypersonic missiles if they want to. With their production capability, they could just test hundreds of missiles of every type until they figured out a hypersonic missile.
Is they still... It's for a lot less money, far more advanced. And the United States is, I wrote about last night, the Pentagon is now throwing money at, we need to produce more PAC-3s for the Patriot. Here's $1 trillion.
Yeah.
Well, they got $1 trillion, and so what? They can't buy the rare earth minerals that needed to make the magnets.
Yeah, I read the article. Yep. And it's not only that, correct. They cannot buy rare earth unless United States has some resource of the rare earth, but who will develop them? And then, of course, there's another thing. They will produce the same weapon which already failed miserably anyway.
Yeah. That's a whole nother question.
Yeah, that
doesn't work. But,
Yeah, where is R&D for new missile? They cannot produce this because they killed actually design and engineering cadres by not by physically killing them, by essentially financializing the whole damn industry. It's all about money, and you cannot fix it really in this present political system. You can't. You need to really change something on the political level in the United States to understand this. Can it be done? Well, theoretically it can be, but you need the completely new generation of the American politicians who are not bought out by Israel and serve the interest of the United States. And even then, how can you infringe on the private property rights? So United States doesn't know what defense of the country is, in the sense that I don't remember the great, Manstein attack.
All these companies, military companies in the United States, they have all these patents. You'd have to upend patent law itself to privatize them and the opposite of privatize, to make them public and integrate them in government. I mean, that would undermine property rights, like he's saying, in a way, because you're basically government taking over all these patents. It's a mess in the United States.
In Boston, or besieging the great siege of Chicago, 1942. I don't remember that.
Right.
So it's like you cannot change this cultural DNA, and this is where the Americans and Russians, while having very many things in common, they also diverge dramatically. Russians are, genetically programmed to look at this, say, oh, okay, there's a huge land empire, and you have to defend it. And that is the thing which my fifth book is being written as we speak. And it's already.
I wouldn't bring genetics into this. Genetics between Europe, United States, and Russia aren't that different.
Catalog. People can go in the Clarity Press and start.
What's the title?
Obsolete.
Oh,
That's the title.
Yeah.
And this is I've been preaching this gospel for 12 years now. Now we have the full-blown, the pile of the empirical evidence, which cannot be refuted, because obviously, well, it could be if you are Washington Post or Trump himself. He lives in the La La Land. He still believes, but all kinds of bizarre things. But the point is that it is obsolete. It is obsolete, in terms of the organization. COE, Table of Organization and Equipment of the U.S. military, is, again, as I said, from 1990. It's 36 years old. It doesn't matter that you can patch it up with better processing.
Remember what happened during Dodge, what Elon Musk discovered, that there was a limit to how many people could retire in the United States, because every time someone retired, they'd have to bring paperwork to this repurposed salt mine, take it down an elevator, and file it away there. And there was a limit to how many times the elevator could go up and down, so only so many federal employees could retire. That's the type of obsolescence that's inside our entire military-industrial complex. Type of, there's so much waste.
Power or better optics or optronic systems, you can do that somewhat. Of course, they will cost you an arm and a leg, but it's not changing the nature of the beast. And so suddenly you have to compete in the real. It is one thing which was United States were leading Soviet Union in 1970, roughly speaking. But pretty much in most parts, with the exception of some air technology, obviously, and let's say armor. And rocketry, it was about even. But everything else, what you would look in 1970 at the United States, and it was like, wow, yeah.
We still had a manufacturing sector back then. We still were somewhat competent back in 1970. Outsourcing didn't really start until over a decade after that.
Well, computers already have been. Soviets were also digitizing. There was a lot of computers used on the operational and strategic level. But the United States has the best communications, the best other things which constituted the command and control structure. It was very advanced. And do not forget that at that time they started pushing the Tomahawk missile, which at that time, Tomahawk
missile was good in 1970, yeah. But it's a 1970 weapon, and in today, in 2026, it's no longer cutting edge.
Especially its TERCOM, terrain command, which was matching the digital maps. It was like, wow, state of the art, So there was a lot of things which were impressive. And of course, the United States at that time, they were leading in terms of the naval development, and American submarines were better. they're better. And so they were aircraft carriers at that time played a very impressive role because but that was it then. Today, you literally look at pretty much everything. It's not there. It's still stuck there. They still think that they can fight on those concepts, and the fact that they do cosmetic changes or patch up here and there, write new army doctrinal publication and say, oh yeah, we have to do this and this and that. Okay, based on what? Show me the money. Show me the damn hardware. Show me the damn preparation of the officer corps and NCOs who know how to fight the modern war. They don't.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't know.
The United States is very good at bombing third world countries. Against modern militaries, like even Iran, well, we saw what happened.
If you've been following what's going on at the U.S. Navy. Oh, Jesus.
Oh, Jesus. I'm sorry for the guys. I'm sorry for the kids. Okay.
Yeah.
It sounds strange. Okay. You're Russian, ethnically, and you're supposed to, be joyful how United States gets humiliated. But this is, especially the fact that they are hungry, this is unacceptable. This is absolutely, and somebody has to answer for this. Why they threw those kids, essentially.
Aircraft carrier, the one that's in next to Iran right now, has been deployed for something like 270 days or something, or no, 230 days, some insane number, and they're running out of fresh food. They're having spades of suicide attempts. It's terrible. The aircraft carriers were not meant to be deployed that long.
U.S. Navy during World War II was fed and maintained, sustained way better than what is happening.
Longest aircraft carrier deployment during World War II was, I think, like 73 days or something. The current deployment of the aircraft carrier in Iran is like nearly 3 times that, or over 3 times that.
Yeah.
Right now.
No, absolutely.
It's absolutely a national shame, and I'm so sorry for these kids and their parents. Absolutely, just heartbreaking.
Yeah, I've run across, so I had one mother of a sailor reach out to me via email. And then last week ago, Saturday, and when I was in Chattanooga, Tennessee with Robert Barnes, I met another mother of a Marine. Now, the sailor was on the USS Tripoli. This mother's son had been on the Boxer. Both told the same story of inadequate chow. Both kids lost substantial amount. One kid lost 30 pounds. And
30 pounds. This is not substantial. This is hunger, period.
Yeah.
That's what it is. When I read this number, I read your piece and I thought, okay, substantial. Then I'm getting like 30 pounds. This is starving. That's what it is.
Then on
What's happened to some troops in the front lines in Ukraine?
top of it, so we've got came out yesterday, stories of the suicides on the USS Abraham Lincoln. And one of my friends, he's president of the West Point class, I think it was prior to 2010. I don't want to rat him out, but he started describing, so as class president, his job is to figure out how to identify people that are, class members who are deceased. And what he's telling me is a lot of them are killing themselves. That the suicides that are taking place in the rank.
You might not have been around for it, but Larry covered what was going on with the aircraft carrier in the video we watched, I think yesterday or the day before. It's very bad.
Ranks of the U.S. military, both Navy, Army, Marine Corps, Air Force, it's horrific.
Yeah.
And it's been going. It's an unaddressed epidemic.
It is. It is. Yeah.
Yeah. So we're seeing that. So we're going to run out of time here. I want to give you. We'll wrap up with. I'm going to put your Nostradamus hat on.
Oh no, good Lord! No, I'm not there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Where do you
Nostradamus.
see the war headed in the next 5 months?
Well, they will try to patch up whatever they have. Those gigantic.
Talk about where the war is going in the next 5 months. This is the fortress belt, the last cities of the fortress belt of Ukraine. After that, as you see these arrows here, it's all fields for hundreds of miles. So once these fall, there's nowhere for the Ukrainians to retreat to. For up to now, they retreat from like one village here to one village here. Everything is fortified in this area. Afterwards, there's no fortifications whatsoever. So once the fortress belt falls, the area of these arrows, that's going to fall like relatively quickly because there's just nothing for the Ukraine to use as defense.
Gigantic holes in personnel. They will probably do the false flag and try to provoke Russia. So there. But other than that, Russians are at the outskirts of Kramatorsk and Slavyansk. Once those liberated, there is nothing which stops Russians to go to Dnipropetrovsk. Simple as that.
Yeah.
Zaporozhye, Russians are closing on Zaporozhye. So,
Yep.
And when you look attentively at those so-called buffer zones, so especially in Sumy, in Kharkov, they are now in hundreds of square kilometers. And these are not just Donbass. These are totally, oblasts which belong to Ukraine. Not anymore. They will not be, Russians will not conquer them. They will control them. So that's what's going to happen. And now that we have a situation which is choked off marine traffic in Odessa is isolated now, period. That's over. And if in the latest one, so just for you to know, I don't know if you followed it, today, Vladimir.
Ukraine is also having trouble in terms of trains. They use a different type of tracks than Europe, and they use it's wider. And so they need a special type of train car that they could get from Russia if they weren't at war with Russia. But so Russians have been targeting the locomotives and the trains, and they're now getting really low. And there's no replacement for them when they run out of locomotives and trains. So that's another part of the Ukrainian logistics that's falling apart.
Putin being the final of the large exercises of the Russian Pacific Fleet, he gave the green light, as was confirmed by the commander officially on air, or commander of the Russian Pacific Fleet, Admiral Viktor Lina, that green light done is for the raiding of the merchant traffic of the unfriendly countries. So, and what does it mean? In Asia, all this traffic and you know how unfriendly countries are, apart from United States. Russia will not be touching United States traffic now, but we have so many people from England, France, Italy, and all that. Why go and, Russians already do convoys in Atlantic and Baltic anyway. No, now that's Pacific Fleet will be stopping and raiding marine traffic, which belongs to those unfriendly countries, which are European Union countries. So what are they going to do about it? Nothing. They don't have capability. If they want to meet Russian Pacific Fleet on the high seas, I would pay a lot of money to see what's going to happen to them. They will not be even able to approach it, unless, of course, they do what they usually do, false flag, terrorism, those things of this nature. So that's what it is. And the screws are tightening now to the point that in the end, it's not about Ukraine. It's about defeating now of NATO.
More specifically, Europe. Trump isn't really interested in Ukraine. He's humoring Europe in the extent that he's supporting Ukraine. And so it's about defeating Europe.
That's what many people still do not understand.
The EU specifically.
Russians will be, as Dmitry Medvedev today told again, everything is going to happen on Russian conditions. And how they will approach it, I'm not privy to general staff and Security Council decisions. I wish I was a fly on the wall for 30 minutes, at least. Yeah.
Well, and
actually, rather than EU, let's say the globalist in Europe, which are all at the EU and in government in the big three, UK, Germany, and France, Macron and the others. That's the true enemy of Russia right now. And they are being defeated.
I lied. This will be the final comment I want from you. England indicated, you know what? Hey, Russia, we need to start talking.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's a sign?
Oh, yeah, it's all related because they understood. So, and it was about this supposed yacht with these two old farts who, I don't know what they were doing, but obviously they were moving towards the Admiral Grigorovich. And they had to do the warning shots, not at yacht. You do warning shots, first at the 5 mils to the, to the stern, then you do the 5,000 to the nose, and then, but Russians were screaming at them nonstop until finally they woke up, whatever they were doing there. And so they say, oh my God, we're approaching Russian frigate. So, but it's the merely excuse. Reality is, and we don't know, and you know better than anybody else, that there is a lot of things which are happening behind the closed doors. Nobody answered yet for the Ursa Major. this Russian civilian ship which was sunk in the Mediterranean as the result of their underwater explosions.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
and now Russians had enough, and now we know what already have been given. So Russians can make British economy suffer tremendously. In Asia, don't forget, they still have gigantic trade with Hong Kong and things of this nature. Well, Russians now will be stopping them because the decision was made. So too late. They had 4.5 years to actually go and talk substance. They refused.
Yeah. Man, it's yeah, I think this is, I view this as a watershed year. Well, listen, everybody.
In a lot of ways, a lot of crazy things that happen this way. Crazy provocation on the part of Europe, the long-range drone strikes, and drones using NATO airspace to attack Russia. Then all the shenanigans on the high sea on the part of Europe, now backfiring. One thing is, it's less likely that Russia strikes a NATO country now that they've taken this step. Let's put it this way. They've escalated on the high seas. It makes it slightly less likely that they'll escalate in other areas, at least before their elections. So that's a good development, I guess. In any case, I'd say the situation in Europe is in some ways, situation in Ukraine, more dangerous than what's going on in Iran. Iran now is, Trump is, it appears, has lost his fervor for war and for bombing because of the dwindling U.S. ammunitions. And so there, we just have to let slow oil shortage play out. But in Ukraine, things are still dynamic. And what will Europe do as they get desperate as the last fortress belt of Ukraine gets taken? We'll have to see. Anyway, this will be on YouTube. Like and subscribe. Come watch on Kick or Twitch. And I'll see you next video. Bye.